Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Okay, so this is the second video in the series where I explore 3 different projects, of which aren't 100% finalized in the direction I'm going. It is just about using these 3 pre-printed panels that I have and working out a bit of a plan of attack and finishing them. So I just wanted to show you where I'm at with this piece. Now, the last video, the first one, I was exploring how this whole technique of Sashiko stitching was done. It's basically a running stitch, but there's a few little tricks to it, especially if you're using the Sashiko thread. The one thing I've learned is one long piece, if you're going to use the double strand version, which gives you a thicker finished stitch, you need to just gently massage that thread quite a few times to make sure that it just sits nice and flat. You can also give it a flick, seems to be a little technique they use, and then you're ready to place a knot at the end and start your stitching. The next hot tip is don't pull your needle out halfway along. In my case, I can get right to that end with excess left in one long fluid movement. That's the trick. Now, halfway along, I stopped, pulled the needle out, and it was because my mind drifted away and I was thinking about something else, and suddenly I was like, oh, I've just pulled the needle completely through the fabric, and the stacking of the needle, as in just moving the needle up and down, and using that needle to fill that whole line. I don't know, I just lost my thought and my concentration, and instinct just pulled the needle through. So don't do that if you possibly can. So the plan, I believe, is every thread you use, make sure it's untwisted and it's looking nice and flat, even if it's a single thread. Then start and don't stop until that thread is completely used, as in up and down through your fabric, stacking it on your needle. Then come down and finish it off. Start a new thread. I think that's the trick to it. I really, really do, which means it's quite quick because you're not pulling your needle through all the time. Fudge, go away. He's just arrived on the table and I don't really want him on this dark fabric. So he's just grizzling and walked off. So yeah, I think that is one of the little secrets. Finish your thread. If it's a nice long thread, keep going. If you have to turn a corner, you can, but just keep going, or finish it off and start a new color or a new thread if you want to control where you're going. What else would I say did I learn? The line that I came up and was like, uh-oh, now I've done it. I went back on to the line and kept going, and I thought, oh, for sure I've twisted it, for sure. But before I sort of continued, I just made sure my thread, once again running it through my fingers, was nice and paired off and no twists, and then I carried on, and thank goodness it didn't twist. So something's gone wrong here. I'm supposed to be putting a thread on top of the white, so I've missed a little stitch. There it is. So it didn't twist, thank goodness, but I would have cut the knot, pulled the thread out and started again, because I'm just determined to have them sitting side by side as they're meant to be and not having a little twist. You'll see it. The moment you see the twist, you'll never unsee it. That's the problem. Now, as you remember, I cut my skein in half. It was looped, so my threads are quite long, and for this piece, as I get to the end, I have quite a nice piece of thread left. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting them aside, just concentrating here for a moment. See, that's all the bits cut off each line that I've done so far. So I've got two options. I can carry on with this piece double thread all the way to the finish line, or as I mentioned, I could do the diagonal design in one thread, which would create a bit of a textured, detailed finish. To be honest, I haven't decided. I just want to get all of these long lineal lines completed as per the instructions that are printed here on this other side of the panel. So I've missed my stitch again. Oh no, I haven't. It's all good. Now, one thing I will notice is, yay, I have no twists, but my stitch lengths are all over the place. Now, this print is all over the place and I'm just following it. So if I was a little bit more confident, I would probably just find my own way with my stitches, and I'd develop a bit of a, I guess, a muscle memory on. So I get to this point, I really feel like pulling the thread, the needle through. Don't do it. Try and resist the urge. I think it's because it's getting a little bit awkward and bunched up. It's like, clear the needle. Don't. Just stop. Move things around a little bit so that you've got a bit more needle showing, and then carry on. Try and resist it. It's hard, but because you'll drift off because it's very, you know, slow stitch orientated. So I started thinking about something else, and then suddenly the needle was out of the fabric and I was like, uh-oh, this is going to be bad. So that'd be my hot tip. What else have I learnt out of all of this? I'm going to cut the longer panel off, this excess here, because it's just excess flopping around and getting damaged, because I'd really like to use that either for a back to a cushion or just a nice piece of blue fabric that I might use and create another design on. Who knows? But I just don't want it beaten around in my sewing basket of projects. So I'm getting to the end. I'm just going to ease that along a bit so that I've got enough needle left to do these last two stitches. Okay. The other thing I want to show you is the white pen. I don't even think I talked much about it in a previous project that I did with the Japanese rice bag. Okay, so that's pretty good. I'm getting better at this. I do notice that occasionally where the knot is, there's some excess thread. See, there it is there. See how there's that little bit excess? It hasn't come through together. So just double check that before you finish off your line. Just pull one of the threads gently. Hang on to your knot and see if, let me get that out of the way, and see if that sort of brings it back into line. It's like a little loop always seems to form. There it is. That is the one. So it'll be one of the two. Then just back that knot off a little bit. You don't want it as tight in. You just gentle. Just very gentle. I guess if this was going on to clothing, as you move and flex within the clothing, you'd want that little bit of excess give there on your stitching. I'd say that's why they're doing that. So, great idea. Now, once again, I think I showed you in the first video, they knot it just by coming back to that stitch and doing a little slip knot through to finish it. You can do a second one if you want, if you feel like it's not secure enough. I guess if it was on clothing, you might do the second one. Once again, just for, you know, keeping your work in place. Now this little bit left is definitely enough to do something with. So if I carry on with a single thread, I've got a nice long piece, or I could get two of them together again, knotting it, and I would have a nice double thread to go again if it was a long, you know, space. But at the moment I'm just keeping those bits. All right, so I've got to the side there and finished that. I will just come up a little bit on that camera. I will continue along here. I'll come down that outer edge and I'll come across here. So I've done the perimeter plus the big bands. Then I'm going to cut off this here. Now I just wanted to show you the pen, and then I'm going to go to my sewing machine and just run a little edge around just so it doesn't fray. Now these pens, Clover white mark pen, available everywhere, fine tip. You will notice when you go to use it, you'll make a line and you'll think that there's nothing there. Give it a second and it appears. So as it dries, it appears. Can you see it there now? So if you think your pen's not working, just give it a second. That'd be my only comment with that, because when I did my line, I was like, what the hang, where is the pen? So I've just used my ruler and I worked out that they've got about 2 centimeters or 1.75 inches, 3/4 of an inch, a little bit less over here. So I did the same thing. I just thought, oh, give it 2 centimeters, dropped my line in, did my pen, and I'm ready to go. So I'm just going to grab my scissors and I'm going to separate it. Now I need to keep this close because it is the order of which you do your stitching for this particular pattern. And I think a lot of that is to do with keeping your fabric nice and flat. If you were to work one corner, so you went from here stitching all the way across, I think you'd warp your fabric. So I believe the reason that they break the process down into certain lines is to keep your fabric nice and straight. Now, the other thing I was looking at, even though I can't read what's going on here, do not use a steam iron and do not spray with water. Because it's a pre-printed panel, it's designed to wash out. So don't be tempted to iron it with steam. I don't even think you need to iron it at this stage anyway. If your threads are sitting right, it seems to feel flat. So I just saw those two images and I thought, well, that makes sense. Okay, so I'm just going to put this aside. What I will do at the end is I will probably stitch this because I think it's just gorgeous and it'd be stitched and just a little patch that I might use in another project. So that's the plan. And I might even get some of my other stencils and I will hit this with the steam, see it disappear, and then I've got some more space to do maybe some little sample stitches. So that's my sort of idea with that little panel. It's like a little bonus. Okay, let's put that to one side, but we still need to see that. That's like my instructions. So that's the plan with that piece. I'll continue doing the border. I will stitch around the perimeter so it doesn't fray to pieces. I need to turn my phone off. I'm getting pinged and Australia Post saying there's a parcel coming, and Messenger and Facebook. Oh, all sorts of exciting things. Anyway, let's stay focused here. So that's the plan on this guy. In the meantime, I need to have a think about, do I go back to one thread or not? Can't decide. Need time to digest it. And the next stitch, number 2. Okay, so that's number 2. It's all of these stitches. So where's my ruler? So they want me to do those lines next. So starting up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, a little guy up there. Okay, so that's how a panel like this is proceeding. So I'll just pop it away. I love it. I'm really, really happy with it. I think my thread will last if I go to one thread, but we'll see. Okay, that's that project updated with you guys. Now, I haven't done anything with this yet, and I think this, I'm still working on this. I'm still thinking about it. I know the outside will be white or cream, probably cream. so I can pick that up at any time. I'm still hunting around for fabrics and still thinking about the decorative elements that I can do in here, so stay tuned. So let's have a play with this guy. Once again, I'm going to remove this panel. Now I can use maybe a brown or a black, which will iron out. I noticed that, can you see this Sashiko line? Then there's this long dash, long dash. That is a stitch line. If you were to make it into cushion, that would be your guide to stitch along if you're attaching a side seam. Like, that's what that's about, I believe. Not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to cut that maybe 1/4 of an inch. See, it's 1/4 of an inch here, but a little bit more there. So I'm going to copy, I think would be wise, the measurement on the other side. This is a friction pen. It will iron out. It's a black one, so don't panic if you think I'm using a black marker. It's not. You can buy these everywhere now. It's like Friction have gone, here's our pen, and it's in every stationery store on every corner. That's what I've noticed anyway. So once again, I'm separating that piece. I'm not sure if I'll make it into a cushion or frame it. I don't know. And either way, I would probably do something a bit decorative on the back. Maybe even use a different fabric, because this fabric is so fine and it's beautiful to do this style of stitching in. So I'm sort of tempted to squirrel it away and maybe do my own stencil on it. It's like a little bonus. So that's the plan for that fabric. It will go into my little box for a rainy day. All right, now this one. I'm still keen on the colours. Let me grab my cottons. I'm still really keen. I'm pretty sure they're all number 8s. So I'm not going to do a double thread. I don't need to. Same brand, different brand. These have got a gloss to them. They're very similar. Okay, at the moment, I think I'll do all blues. So I keep thinking about these deer. Do I be crazy and bring in, is that an 8? Chocolate. Do I just paint it like colour? Will it get too busy? See, then you'd bring in pinks. I don't know, guys. I sort of feel I could have more fun. And then you could bring in green. Oh, just does it ever end? Would it be too messy? Classic Japanese would be one colour and one colour only. My favourite here would be the teal. This is going to be actually quite tricky to keep it from puckering, because the corners and the loops and the... Yeah, this one's going to be a lot trickier. I see some people do it in a hoop, and then I'm like, well, that defeats the purpose of doing the stacking of the needle, because you can't do that if it's in a hoop. But when you see the intensity of design here and the direction changing, I can sort of see why you would use a hoop. going to start with this turquoise because I really do like it. I'm going to try stacking the needle. I'm going to work on those large petals, and if it feels like it's not sitting right or puckering, or maybe I apply a traditional embroidery styling to it and pop it into a hoop. I don't know. Let's see how we go. What could possibly go wrong? Okay. Now, get rid of the glasses so I can focus properly on what I'm doing. I might start at the bottom here of this stitch because I sort of feel like the one that would go around there would need to be A, a different colour, and B, a different stitch, a piece of thread. I'm already in a mess. I don't think I've got a twisting problem, but I'm just going to do that easing of the fibres just to, I don't know, just got into the habit from doing that other piece. Okay, we are off and running. So once again, just stacking the fabric as we go. See, we're going around a corner. That's going to be interesting. So it's good when you're in a straight line, but we're getting a bit fancy here. See, I have to pull the needle through. I can't get around there. I'm pulling the needle through, guys. I guess the twisting is not an issue because we're not using two threads. So I think that issue will not apply. Once again, take a bit of pressure off of that knot so that it sits nicely. And away we go again. I think, all right, so I'm going to go down to here. You've sort of got to, I think, work through your design and pick your path of least pressure on the fabric. So I popped up down here. With that thought of heading back up here. And remember that rule I mentioned that they all talk about? No stitch must touch another. So you may need to just sort of adjust your lengths a little bit if you feel like you're going to bash into another stitch coming from another direction. So I'd be, yeah, see how you've got to have that little bit of space. Let me zoom in now. I think we've got ourselves a plan of attack. Now this also will wash out or steam out. I presume so. According to that other panel it does. Mind you, I can't read Japanese, but I believe so. I think I did see that on a video. So if you don't quite hit the line, which I didn't there, don't fret because the line will disappear. Okay, once again, just coming back a bit from that one that's coming through there, and I'm going to pop up down here. Just something else I thought of, you know, when you jump to another spot to come up and carry on. I see that in some of the work that they do that. They'll scoot across to go another direction, and so on the back there's this big stitch. That seems to be okay, but I can see my jump stitch a little bit underneath. So if I was to jump, say, across like that and pop up over here to do some work, I would see that stitch. So something else I need to have a little think about is I would probably need to lay this fabric on something dark. Let me show you what I'm thinking. What is that? That panel. Let's say I've jumped around a little bit and I can see a line of thread through this because it's so thin. I would say before I stitched it or framed it, I might need to consider laying it on a grey or a blue background, which would help disguise the fact if there was any threads that were, you know, scooting around all over the place. And it's only because this is so thin. You can see extra stitches. Maybe if you were framing it and there was a piece of cardboard behind it of that dark grey colour, it wouldn't be noticed. But if that was up at a window with light coming through, you'd definitely see it. So something just to consider, especially if you're using something like red. I reckon you would notice your stitches. So I can't stack as much with this because there's a lot of curves. So completely different piece. When I come up, I'm making sure that the work is flat before I proceed, and there's no pressure on my stitches or pressure pulling the fabric. So that's looking good so far. Gosh, they're so different. Completely different way of approaching these projects. I'm glad I'm sort of doing them together actually, because it's helping me learn very quickly the different styles. So I guess next time I'm out and about shopping, and if something catches my eye, I know that that piece needs to be approached accordingly. Does that make sense? And I guess if you guys are yet to invest in a panel, you can sort of go, all right, well, I really love colour. Maybe I could be brave and go with something that's a little bit more detailed, like a piece of embroidery. I can see that stitch is not sitting nice and flat, so I'm just going to take a moment to take the pressure off these two. It's probably because I turned a corner. So take your time. I think that's going to be the secret to producing a beautiful piece, is you don't pucker it and I'm a bit concerned that if I do colour, is it going to look like a European style fancy work piece, you know, where we play with colour? So a little bit concerned about that. Don't know. Keep going. I do love this turquoise colour, but then how do I match fabrics to it if I decide to make it into cushion? I'd have to have a think about the fabrics that go with it. Does that matter? Should I be boring and just do it in a charcoal colour? And I don't know. I don't know. Oh, don't you love projects like this where you just don't quite know where you're heading yet, but you're brave enough just to pick up a needle and get into it. What have we got to lose? Nothing. It's just fabric and thread. Like sometimes we get ourselves so caught up. I did at the beginning of this. I really did, because I had something in my mind for the big panel, the cherry blossom panel. And then when I finally got time to pull it out and go, righto, now it's time to start a project, I was like, oh, it's not beige, it's blue. And I just completely shut it down. Like, it was pretty quick. I popped it on the table and walked back out the room. And I sat for a day just thinking about it all, thinking, I'm like, well, there's a couple other little ones there. I must dig them out, have a look, see what I got. A couple of days went by, pulled them out, had a look. I didn't unwrap the one, the little geometric one, but I did unwrap this one. I'm like, whoa, this has got a lot of detail, because I had forgotten. Well, what do I do with that then? That's not as simple as I thought. To do a plain colour, that's a bit boring. The geometric would be good as a plain colour. It's on blue. What do I do with cherry? See, that's where my head went. Isn't it a mess? Oh dear. Take the pressure off that. I can see that it's pulling. So just slow down, girl. There we go. Nice little stitch. Ease our way out of that corner. And away we go again. Oh. Were you watching going, Corinne, your needle is not threaded? Okay. It is so windy here today. It is just blowing a gale. Maybe we're finally going to get a bit of winter. We always joke that we crochet or knit a heap of scarves, and then we have one day that we can wear them. And then our winter is sort of pretty mild, really. It's not really a scarf town. I run a bit hot too. I'm not someone that feels the cold terribly. So scarves, I have a lot I've made over the years, and I've had to start pinching them off because I'm just not wearing them. I'm going to attempt to finish this line right there, coming down, and then knot it off. This, you know what this would be pretty in? A variegated thread. So you just keep going in the one colour and let the thread, you know, do its thing. I'm just going to put my glasses on so I make sure I'm not puckered. Nope. I've got to the end, yes. So just slide the needle under, and then again, and doing a little slip knot as you go. Okay, so we've made a decision. We've got some stitches down. Yep, I like that. So now I'd carry on with that teal. That's a given. I won't waste your time with that. What are we doing now? Are we going to do a new colour in there? And if I did, what would it be? Do we be crazy and make it colour like that? I don't know. Do we... See, you could start getting crazy and adding extra stitches. Like, where does it stop? It's not cruel. It's... I think that ring that those petals go to needs to stay in that tone. I don't want it to get too busy. I think if I got too busy, it would take away from the design. So I think I'll use that turquoise to not only finish there, but come back through. So that's that decision. So in the center, do I add the pink? I think I want to. Let's just do it. Stop procrastinating, girl, and do it. So far turquoise is in the color palette. I think I need a green, and I've got a pink, a pinky purpley tone. So that's the three colors so far. Do we stay at that or do we continue? We've got animals, so we've got rabbits. There's another brown in here. See, it's slightly less intense. So I might pull it out just to be, and we have a red, which often looks good with pink. So let's pull him out. There's another red. Are they the same? That's a better red, I think. It's more of a burgundy red. And I've got my classic beige. Oh my goodness. Look what's happening. I've got an olive green that is variegated. Oh boy, oh boy. And then I've got this dark green. That's just in my immediate circle. But one must keep her options open. So let me zoom up a little bit and you can see what's going on. Look at this. What a mess. But they're in. All right. What joins and what happens? Who knows? I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm not going to overthink it. So let's do a bit of work in the center here. What I might do is go around the center. I don't know if this is the right way to approach this design, but it would stabilize the center, if you will. Now remembering that golden rule, no stitch should bump into the next stitch. So I'm going to keep that in mind as I place this stitch, thinking about the ones coming down towards it. See, if this was in a hoop, you'd be doing this stab stitch motion, which I sort of think needs to happen because it's so intense. It's not like a big long linear line. Because if that gathered up on a needle, that'd be really difficult to actually flatten back out, where I can make that flat right now. And I think I've got a better result, to be honest, than what I achieved up there. Isn't that interesting? So now I'm going to make my way up that petal. And as I'm changing direction, I'm going to pull through. Well, looks like I'm going to be playing with colour with this one. I guess it's something different. Guess it doesn't really matter. We're just experimenting. I guess if I hate it, I can undo it. I don't really want to do it all one colour. How boring. I just may need to refrain myself. And now I'm jumping over here, being mindful that the stitches should never touch. So I'm coming back a little bit. The print has taken me right up to it, but we don't want that. this is interesting. I have got to decide how I go left and right. Oh, I bet there's a technique that one does. So I'm going to have to jump a little bit, I think. Or knot off and start again. Or should I have whipped around the outer perimeter? I don't know. I'm going to go this way. Oh no, don't know if I missed this bit. I've got to do it. And I might have to just weave my thread through existing threads behind to get to where I need to get back to. Goodness me. Probably breaking all the rules. First of all, nice and flat, yes. Now, if I was to place my thread in through those, that would get me to the next area and not put any pressure on anything. It's a bit messy. I bet some of these designs are classics, like this flower, and there's probably a order of which you do it in, my guess. So we're back over here now. We're off and racing. So this series I'm not going to play consecutively. Oh, what's the word? You know, one after the other, because it's going to take time to stitch. So I'll work them into the weekly format. So it gives me time between projects to sort of pick it back up and, you know, work on it again. And then film it, and you know what I mean. So if this is something that you've stumbled across my channel and you're really interested in this style of work, but probably not anything else I do, I'd highly recommend you subscribe, and hit the little bell that notifies you if one of these videos comes up, or any video comes up, I guess. Then you can glance at it and go, oh, okay, she's back showing us Sashiko. And if some of the other videos pop up that you're not real interested in, well, then you don't need to, you know, click on it to follow it along. You can move on to someone else that you're watching. So that'd be probably a benefit of clicking that little bell. It's a notification bell. So I'm going to this time head back over to there, and then again weave back through the back to get myself back over there. So far, so good. I'll try and keep my threads straight-ish. All right. So I'm going to just take a breath on that one, because I don't want to spend the whole video just working. Oh, it's just started raining. I don't want to spend the whole video just working the one colour, so I'm going to take my needle up there and just let that lie loose so it's out of the way. So we can explore another area then and make some more decisions. Okay. Let's make some green decisions. Look at all this down here. Okay, green 1, green 2, green 3. variegated. Are we heading off on a different tangent? Is that a good idea? No, no variegated threads. I wonder, see how we've got, sorry, I went quiet there for a moment. See how we have, where's something to point? We've got this little thing happening here, and it wraps down here and goes up here and catches it there. And then we've got these buds. And then coming down here is this guy. And then there's these. And if you come down a little bit further, there's another leaf coming off here. Now, if I was to think about light, I would make this little bit down here dark green. I would make the center definitely dark green, this stem dark green, and I'd use the lighter green to bring a little bit of light in. So I'd do those lighter green, and I'd do that a lighter green. There's something going on here too, I don't know what that is. See that there? So just a random filler of space. Look at that. Maybe a dark green in there. So this foliage, then there's some little squares down here. And another flower, and then more foliage, and there's 2 petals. The simple method would be one colour right through. But I'm tempted to play with 2. Let's just get a little bit of green, dark. I really like that citron-y green. It just brings light into projects. So I'm just going to do this stem. Oh, it's crooked. I didn't even hit the spot with the bloomin' first stitch. This is becoming a variegated mess. I can see it. I can't help myself. Why not? Let's play with colour. It'll make it more interesting. So let's get this green down here. And it's the dark green. So let's assume when we look at a design, anything that would be back in the background or have a shadow, maybe it's behind another leaf, has to be dark green. There's our rule. And then the light green is the light bouncing around. So let's get that line of stitching in. Yeah, I like that. Looks good on the fabric. Let's get our tension right, back that little knot off. Okay, happy with that. Now I said I'd do then the branch coming out in dark green. So it's a bit tight in here, no stitches to touch. That's the other rule. I could probably stack this a bit because it's pretty much a straight line. Definitely once I get up to there, which does make it quicker because you're not wasting that time lifting your needle out of the fabric and reinserting. Curves can be a bit of a problem when stacking, so just keep that in mind. That's really only good for a straight run, as I discovered on those petals. I'm going to come out because there is a bit of a curve happening. I don't want to put pressure on the thread. That's it, just flatten it out. There is a corner happening here, so I'm going to go back there and just make sure there's enough of a thread left to give us, you know, a little bit excess there, just to keep it nice and flat. That's great. All right. So let's just flatten that again. And up we go. Now we've got two choices. We could bring in a pale green up the top there for those little leaves. But I'm thinking, so that it's not too busy, I'm going to continue with the dark. Because it sort of feels like this is a different plant over here. This bud is a completely different plant. But I'm probably overthinking it. There we go. And around we go. I feel good we're making a start on this one. That's it. Lost my thread again. And nope, no stitches are to meet. So that print on the fabric actually meets there. We don't want that. Yep, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to leave that thread there. If I can get my needle up. Just make it disappear out the side there so it's not in my way. Okay, so I will continue with that darker tone through there, but let's have a play with this thread. It's either going to look good or it ain't, and it will be those little leaves. It's a bit hard to tell for you guys actually because there's a shadow of grey print behind everything, so it's probably not looking as striking as you think. So let's do a big leaf and see how that goes. Here's our green. So I'm going to come down now the other side of that. See, I missed the marks a few places. Let's see what this looks like. By doing this, as in colour, it's going to help when I do the animals. I think that's where I was sort of heading, that it'd be nice to bring in some chocolates for the animals. I should have hopped on Pinterest and typed in the name of this cloth and seen if anyone else has stitched it and put a picture up, because sometimes that's a good way of getting a snapshot of maybe your idea before you proceed. You might find a colourful one, you might find a plain one, you might find a charcoal one. Okay. All right. Let's stop for a moment and have a look. spectacles back on. And there we go. We've got the start of colour. Now let me zoom right in so you guys can have a bit of a look too. Come right in. So it's a bit hard with the grey behind that green, the dark green, the turquoise, and then the pink. It will be more interesting to stitch it because I am playing with colour, and I think once the grey print behind it disappears, I think it'll help. Yeah, it's what I'd say a modern version of these designs. Let me even bring it up to the camera. See that green? I think it'll help make the piece have a bit of movement because this paler green will sort of bounce around a little bit. And then of course the centre. I guess then I keep thinking I want to bring in fabric bits, but I don't because it's too indents. I think it would ruin it. Like you could cut a piece of fabric to sit in all of these to build up the petal. But then what do you do with your fish and your bird? And I think it becomes such a mess, you wouldn't know where you were. Look, I'm going to continue the way I am. I don't think I'm going to pull it out and do it in one colour. I'm going to be brave. I'll finish all that green. What I'll do with this flower is I'll work it in the pinks, but I may look at either bringing a red in, or maybe I need to go hunting. So that's the wrong size thread. These are some old girls. I may need to go hunting for a cotton that's this colour and that becomes this flower, or yeah, I don't know. I'll have a play with the flowers. I'll finish that, play with those flowers, then I'll report back and see, you know, where my head's at and where we proceed. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining me. Let me just zoom back out and I will see you in the next video. Okay, enjoy your time stitching away. Bye.